I'm not thinking about what's next even after this. I mean, I'm focused on, appealing to the voters, the taxpayers, and to win.
Coming up on Talking Points, we spoke with Student Association President David Bruin about his plans in local government after graduation, what he wants to do for his community coming up.
Ericka, I am running for President of the United States of America.
Plus, Nikki Haley is running for the 2024 GOP nomination. We'll discuss how this changes the primaries.
And President Biden took an unexpected trip to Ukraine today. We'll break down why the president is overseas. All that and more. Talking Points starts right now. For the first time ever, District 11 in Rockland County, New York could have a 21-year-old in office. Good evening and welcome into Talking Points. I'm Jake Morel.
And I'm Teagan Brown. I spoke yesterday with Student Association President David Bruin, who reflected on his transition from Syracuse University to running a real-world campaign. I'm joined now in studio by David Bruin, the current Student Association President here at Syracuse University. And you are running for county legislator in Rockland County, and that's where you grew up, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Rockland County. It's a suburb in New York City, outside of New York City, and was born and raised in Rockland County. Born specifically in Suffern, raised in West Nyack, educated in Clarkstown Public Schools, and I've served the student body here at Syracuse University for 2 years now, and have continued to stay engaged back home in local government and local politics, and have seen how the county legislature and the whole county government really has been underserved. And so I've decided to throw my hat into the ring and look forward to running a really serious campaign and winning this November.
And so you mentioned it, you've been student body president here for 2 terms, but what exactly else are you bringing to the table here?
Yeah, well, so I've got some experience in government although of my relative youth, as an intern for my local state senator, congresswoman, and I've been involved in the local politics as a treasurer for my town and county Democratic committees. So I've been involved and know a lot of the people that are leaders in the community, and they've gotten to know me, and I think really believe in me, believe in my ability to represent the community and to bring some change to the Rockland County Legislature, to make it a body that is really active and really serving the people of Rockland County.
And why exactly run? Is this to launch a political career? Is this to, better the lives of your constituents? What exactly is the reason that you're throwing your hat in the ring?
Yeah, that's, the question, right, that any person thinking about running for public office needs to answer. And my answer is really, I think, actually very simple. I'm not thinking about what's next even after this. I'm focused on, appealing to the voters, the taxpayers, and to win. So I'm not thinking about what's next at all. Really, my answer is, this is a moment in our country right now where our generation, Generation Z, is starting to get into leadership. We've seen now a Gen Z member of Congress. We're seeing young people from my generation running for local office, state office, and winning. And not only winning, but they're doing well on behalf of the people that they represent. And so for me, it's about why not me, right? Why not have young people in my county serve the people that, frankly, need representation, particularly in my county? Because when I graduated high school, everyone was saying that they were not going to come back home. They're going to go off to college, and maybe they'll stay in their college town, or they'll move to New York City or California or some other state. They're not coming back. And we have a huge brain drain problem that we need to address. And the people that are going to be right to address it are people like me, who have considered not coming back home. Politics in running for office was not in the cards for me necessarily. I've been thinking about, can I get into state government? Can I get into federal government and serve people through that? Not necessarily running for office. I don't think that's necessarily the only way that you can serve people. There are nonprofits and great organizations out there that do a lot of meaningful work. So that's what I was looking for, but this opportunity came up and it felt like something I really needed to do. The county legislature, I mean, frankly, they only do a few bills every year, and the average age of the county legislature is 63. It's 3 times my age. So why not, young people, run and serve and represent the people of this community? That's really my thinking, ultimately.
And now you mentioned this average age. You would be the youngest county legislator in Rockland history.
That's right.
Do you have any concerns about that? You know, only being 21, going into this, not having as much experience as these people who, like you said, are 3 times your age.
Yeah, I have no concerns at all. And I certainly don't think any voters should either.
Thank you again to SA President David Bruin for taking the time to speak with us on Talking Points. And if you want to watch that entire interview, make sure to check out our YouTube at CitrusTV.
Citizens in East Palestine, Ohio are continuing to voice their concerns after a train carrying hazardous substances derailed 2 weeks ago, leaving many in and around the area worried about their health and safety. Talking Points analyst Chilekasi Adele joins us now. And Chile, it appears that federal help is finally coming.
Right, Jake. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine announcing Friday that FEMA is sending a team to East Palestine. This is interesting because it was only a few days before that when DeWine said FEMA deemed Ohio ineligible for disaster aid due to a lack of property or home damage. Remember, this isn't a tornado or a hurricane we're dealing with here. If you're not familiar with how this took place, it was February 3rd, 17 days ago, when a Norfolk Southern train derailed at a town of about 4,800 people right before 9 p.m. Officials say most of the 150 rail cars posed no hazardous threats to the community, but the NTSB told us last week that about 20 cars contained hazardous material. The board also says early looks into a cause suggest a faulty wheel bearing on one of those rail cars could be the reason for the derailment. A major fire broke out for days as a result of the derailment. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Authorities on the scene expressed concerns about rising temps inside one of the rail cars, saying a major explosion could send damaging material out over a mile radius. Officials decided to burn the vinyl chloride in that car through a controlled release. That's when officials ordered the evacuation of a 1 to 2 mile radius around the scene, because burning vinyl chloride can also lead to the production of other toxic chemicals. It was let go into a trench where it was then burned. Officials said the air quality was acceptable before residents were let back into their homes. The EPA also says there is no reason to be worried about air quality. So take a look at this on your screen. They say as of last Tuesday, 396 homes were screened and no toxic chemicals related to the derailment were detected. Norfolk Southern is being sued, though. A new federal suit filed in the Northern District of Ohio alleges the company dumped over 1.1 million pounds of cancerous chemicals into the air when it burned the vinyl chloride.
Chile joining us at the desk now. Now, East Palestine is really actually quite close to that Ohio-Pennsylvania border. Is there any concern in that western part of Pennsylvania about any of this?
Very much so. You know, again, this evacuation radius was a mile, and you see that East Palestine is a quarter mile away from the PA state border. So a lot of western Pennsylvania also affected by this as well. Governor Josh Shapiro actually had this to say. He sent a letter to Norfolk Southern last week talking about this train derailment. He said 3 things. The company put people at risk, if you see this on your screen, in 3 different ways during the response. He said there was no unified command, which he says created confusion and a lack of awareness. He also says the company provided inaccurate information about the impact of the derailment, making the decision-making out of all this very complicated. And finally, he said Norfolk Southern was unwilling to explore or explain other courses of action that didn't involve the burning of that vinyl chloride, like you saw there. And he argues that it limited the amount of things that leaders were able to do in the midst of all of this.
And so, Chile, the EPA has talked about the air. How about the water, before those chemicals were burned into that trench?
Right, Jake, that's been a huge concern from a lot of citizens, as you alluded there, throwing it over to me. State and federal officials say they've yet to detect anything dangerous, any toxic chemicals in the water, but some citizens have said they've experienced rashes, they've experienced headaches as a result of all of this. Some are also getting their own tests, saying that they believe the government ones are not sufficient. East Palestine's mayor telling people with wells to drink the bottled water instead of actually going and drinking their well supply. And also Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, he says, the EPA says these things are safe. They say that it's okay to go drink the water from your tap and whatnot in the well. But at the same time, he's saying people should be skeptical. It's not the first time we in America have seen something like this before. Obviously, a lot of people are brought back to Flint, Michigan, even though it was a little bit of a different situation. But there's a lot of people who simply just don't trust what the government's telling them right now.
And it's pretty clear that a lot of people are concerned. You talk about the people in East Palestine right now. You talk about the people in Western Pennsylvania. So what exactly is Norfolk Southern doing to kind of calm down these fears or address them?
Right. So they've said recently, the CEO said that they're going to stay in East Palestine as long as it takes. The company says it's going to give over $1.7 million in direct financial assistance. It's also establishing a $1 million fund as well. And East Palestine's fire department is also supposed to get about $220,000 to replace some of the things they lost, the things that got damaged in all of this as they were all there fighting the fire. But the governor's office, the Ohio governor's office, a spokesperson for Mike DeWine said that Norfolk Southern isn't doing what they need to yet, that they still have a long way to go in terms of making the community whole again as they promised. And also, Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown had this to say on CNN.
First thing I say is if they write a check to an East Palestine or Unity Township resident or people even a little farther away, never sign away your legal rights. You can accept the check, but don't sign anything that would sign away your legal rights. That's what companies like this do.
So again, it just goes to show you a lot of the skepticism that a lot of the people in East Palestine and a lot of people around the country have when it comes to the intentions of Norfolk Southern, a company that reported $1.3 billion in income last October. Some people are saying that's simply not enough.
Chilekasi, Adele, thanks for joining us. Jimmy Carter, the 39th president of the United States, entered hospice care this past weekend. After a series of short hospital stays, the Carter Center sent out a statement saying Carter, quote, decided to spend his remaining time at home with his family and receive hospice care instead of additional medical intervention, end quote. The Carter Center, which was formed after his presidency in 1980, has advocated for advocated for public health and human rights globally. Alongside his wife Rosalind, Carter won a Nobel Peace Prize for his work with the foundation.
And the United States' debt problems continue to rise and will still likely spend more money than what the country will take in. Reports are expecting to see the ceiling hit between July and September of this year, which of course changed a few weeks ago from what we saw where it would hit in June, which would cause all sorts of problems in the U.S. Now, Talking Points analyst Harrison Calder is going to go into depth about what exactly this means for the United States. So, like we said, we may see this hit between July and September. What the heck is going to happen if we hit the debt ceiling?
There could be a lot of things that could happen. Good evening, guys. The Congressional Budget Office believes that the U.S. government will have until July through September to avoid paying these bills. These numbers are very different from the Treasury Department, as they believe June 5th, like you mentioned, was an important date on whether they will act or risk default. Republicans in the House, they believe that, attaching spending cuts to every bill will be huge and could do a lot to help out with getting rid of some debt. And we've seen Chuck Schumer talk about House Speaker Kevin McCarthy saying that he wants to make cuts, but he has not done anything to do that. So there's a lot of things that will go into that and potentially could show how we've had troubles getting rid of debt in our past.
And Harrison, what is the X date and what does that mean for this whole situation?
Yes, so Shay Akibas, who works with the Bipartisan Policy Center, which is a group of people that get both sides, or excuse me, points from the Republicans and the Democrats, throw them together. That's a team that's now working together to find out this X date, which would be the date that we hit where we're getting over the budget. So if we do hit that date, there's 3 things that it's important for. We have now, which is months ahead of time, where we can try and figure out what to do. We have weeks ahead, where we could just figure out before we hit that X date, and then if we do end up hitting the X date, how we can figure out these issues.
And so last month we talked about a little bit about what the U.S. could do to, come out of this potential problem. We talked about, pausing reinvestments, cutting different investments. Has anything changed? Like, what are they doing right now to stop this problem?
Right now, they're doing a lot of different things. They're coming up with ideas. They're coming up with sorts of ways to cut it down. It's not going as well as they'd like. They could do a lot of other things, such as maybe opening the border, raising the retirement age, implementing a national sales tax, all these sorts of things that over time could help with budget.
Harrison Calder, thanks for joining us. Coming up on Talking Points, with Nikki Haley announcing her run for the White House, the GOP primaries are heating up. We'll break down the ballot after the break.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Smokey, catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner!
Go?
Excellent. Sorry for stopping. Yeah, I saw you guys out there.
Welcome back to Talking Points. In what looks to be a very complicated race for the Republican Party, former President Donald Trump just got his first official challenger.
Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley announced that she is running for president this past week. Talking Points analysts Gustavo Adolfo Madero and Ericka Love join us here to discuss what we might expect from the Republican Party in anticipation to the 2024 elections. Now, Ericka, I'll ask you first, can you tell us a little bit more about the former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley and her campaign, and how exactly this announcement has been received by, not only the general public, but the Republican Party as well?
Sure. So former Governor Nikki Haley has talked about, focusing forward head on beating Biden. It's not about her other competitors or what this race may look like. But another big part of her campaign has started out to turn out to be, she's challenging this 21st century politician, what they look like, who they are, not dealing with people from the 20th century, people who feel like they're behind, even if they're older. And so she's really advocating for what this 21st century politician looks like. In her conversation with former President Donald Trump, he said she should follow her heart. And she said she's not worried about Trump. She's just going to focus on beating Biden.
And Gustavo, we've seen so many potential candidates on the Republican side. Who do you think this primary is going to come down to?
Well, Jake, in a recent poll made by Quinnipiac University, they found that former President Donald Trump is actually the strongest Republican candidate. In this poll, they grabbed a name of 14 names of either Republicans that have either said they're running for president or that they might. And these polls found that former President Donald Trump currently has 46% of the vote between Republicans and Republican-leaning voters, followed by Ron DeSantis with 36% of the vote. And in third place, we have Nikki Haley with 5% of the vote. And there's a tie for fourth place between Mike Pence and CIA Director Mike Pompeo with 4% of the vote. So we can see how this race has started off between two main ones, which is former President Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, which former President Trump has already went to attack back last week in Truth Social after calling him Ron DeSanctimonious after implying that he had behaved in a not good way with underage girls when he used to work as a teacher. So I think it's going to be very interesting seeing how these Republican candidates attack and deal with Trump's criticisms while finding a way to kind of convince the Republican Party and the Republican voters to let Donald Trump in the past.
Gustavo and Ericka, thanks for joining us. Today, North Korea continued its test of short-range ballistic missiles towards Japan. The test was the second in the past 3 days and has prompted Tokyo to call for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council.
And the missiles were fired around 7 a.m. this morning from a town on the west coast of North Korea, although no missiles entered Japan's international waters. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said North Korea's series of actions threatens the peace and security of our country.
And last week, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California announced she would not run for a sixth term. This doesn't come as a huge surprise as she's 89 years old. Talking Points analyst Noah Gutfleisch is here to discuss her potential replacements. Noah, thanks for joining us. And Noah, who are these candidates that we're looking at to potentially replace Senator Feinstein?
Okay, so we have two candidates who've announced so far, Representatives Katie Porter and Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is known for his role in the first Trump impeachment and has been a longtime congressman from Los Angeles. And Katie Porter is a newer congresswoman from Orange County. Some people call her a protege of Elizabeth Warren, since she was actually her law school professor. So they've announced, and then Representative Barbara Lee from Northern California, the Bay Area, she has filed paperwork and has told people she is going to run. And then we could potentially be seeing other candidates, such as Progressive Representative Ro Khanna announce, or other statewide officials or representatives.
And so, Noah, California has a jungle primary system, which of course is very different from right here in New York, where basically the two candidates with the most votes are continuing on. So is there a possibility that the Republicans could just be completely locked out of this primary?
I think that is actually a very likely scenario, since we have seen that twice in the last decade. In 2016, when Barbara Boxer retired, we saw it was Vice President Harris versus Representative Sanchez, both Democrats. In 2018, Feinstein faced another Democrat. So it's happened before, and if the Republicans can't coalesce around one candidate, I think that's a very likely scenario.
Noah, thank you so much. And coming up after the break on Talking Points, just this morning, Biden made a surprise visit to Kyiv, Ukraine. Stay tuned for the details.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with S.
Snow?
No.
Snow-covered trees.
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones.
Don't even.
And explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly, a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
Welcome back to Talking Points. President Biden made an unannounced visit to Ukraine earlier today. This comes as the one-year anniversary of the Russian invasion approaches this Friday. Here to discuss why President Biden is overseas is Talking Points analyst Dominic Chapone. Dominic, what exactly is President Biden looking to achieve with this unexpected visit?
Jake and Teagan, solidarity for Ukraine seems to be the main message for the Biden administration as it continues to push with this Ukrainian policy, especially after this latest visit. What we know right now is that President Biden landed in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv this morning to meet with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Now, during his visit, Biden kept his remarks brief, highlighting a new delivery package for critical relief and Ukraine as a defense against authoritarian governments. Biden praised Ukraine's continued persistence even after nearly a year worth of warfare against Russia. Now, in his remarks, Biden said, quote, "1 year later, Kyiv stands and Ukraine stands, democracy stands." Messaging is another theme Biden looks to clearly note here. White House officials said Biden's surprise visit is unprecedented in modern times. Now, according to BBC, the visit was actually planned for months, but a final decision wasn't made until a few days ago. This also allowed the Biden administration to announce a $450 million aid package, which includes ammunition, rockets, and Javelin missiles.
Now, Dominic, this visit comes on the cusp of the one-year anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. How does it fit into the broader scope of the conflict regarding other nations?
The interesting thing, Jake, with President Biden coming to Ukraine at an interesting time is the developments that have been going on with both Russia and with China. There's news out there that China is allegedly going to supply ammunition and military support to Russia. You also can tie that into what's been going on with China lately and the call from a lot of members in Congress to push back Russian and Chinese aggression. That's what we've seen now, where the United States, to an extent on the Biden administration front, is looking to take a stronger stand on those nations.
And now, Dom, President Biden traveled to Kyiv. He went there. He talked to Zelensky, but he could have just done this on the phone. Why go in person in the middle of a war, in the middle of a war zone, and talk to Zelensky?
The message here is pretty clear. This would have been radically different than what Biden was supposed to do, which is 2 days from now end up in a conference that was going to be scheduled for a speech in Poland. This, on the other hand, is just a amazing political stunt just from the perspective of on that front, but also just from what's been going on with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is a tactical move by the Biden administration to show not only solidarity and also kind of put an emphasis on the Ukrainian strength of democracy in the face of Russian aggression, but you look at this from the lens of pushing back against Russian violence. And I think that's the message that Biden's pushing, especially when we're taping this on a Monday and we are 4 days away from that one-year anniversary.
Dominic, thanks for joining us. Coming up on Talking Points, gun violence and specifically school shootings continue to be an issue in the United States. We'll break down why lawmakers have been slow to react.
Every time I hear the alarm bell go off in school, I think it's an air raid. A lot of houses in our neighborhood have been destroyed. I like to close my ears and sing songs whenever the bombs come close. I'm worried our new neighbors won't like us. But I know it's all gonna be worth it. I just want my family to be safe. But these are not my words. These are not my words. These are not my words.
Here's to the straggly ones, the lopsided ones, the first ones, the I miss my beard ones. But hey, I look good with this ones. But no way he's grown that in a week ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The, that one. The itchy ones. The never forgotten ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The started late ones. The absolutely filthy ones. The drawn-on ones, the finger ones, the pin ones, the I nearly didn't do it this year ones, and the yeah, why not ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Welcome back to Talking Points. We end our show tonight on a sad note, addressing the polarizing issue of gun violence, specifically after the tragedy at Michigan State last week. With classes resuming this morning, there's still little that has been done to address gun violence from lawmakers across the country. Talking Points spoke with Jacqueline Schaudkraut, the executive director of the Regional Gun Violence Research Consortium in Albany, about why the issue is so polarizing.
Kraus says firearms have long been a polarized and political issue due to the amount of money that is spent by both sides in respect to lobbying for their respective positions. A challenge is that there is a minority number of voices that tend to be quite loud and appear to be speaking for the majority, when in fact they do not necessarily respect majority positions. Talking Points will monitor gun violence throughout the coming weeks and further explore what lawmakers are doing to ensure safety nationwide.
And that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Jake Morel.
And I'm Teagan Brown. Have a great night, Syracuse.